And you can get yourself a really smoking hot leather jacket, and you can hit the open road with your BFFs, but that does not make you a real biker.
Riding off into the sunset, brushing their hair against the wind, and not a care in the world. The female members of the notorious biker gang, the Hells Angels, are a triple threat. They're beautiful, cunning, and dangerous. Arguably, some of the most dangerous members the club's ever seen. Number 20, Sandy Sullivan. Sandy Sullivan had the makings of a dangerous outlaw. She was smart, resilient, and could evoke fear in the hearts of anyone who dared cross her. She was also familiar with the ins and outs of the Hells Angels. A tall order for anyone, but especially for a woman. You see, the Hells Angels refer to themselves as a brotherhood. That is, they don't allow women into their community. If there are any women, they're usually referred to as old ladies. Basically, the only affiliation a woman could have with the Hells Angels at Sandy Sullivan's time was as either a wife or a girlfriend of a Hells Angels member. Sandy had an affiliation, all right. Her father had been a long-time enforcer of the Los Angeles chapter of the outlaw group. He noticed the fire in Sandy's eyes long before anyone else did, and he wanted her to hone her craft. He began taking her to clubhouses at a time when women were kept far, far away from them. Sandy's father, however, didn't care. He knew that his daughter would one day rule the entire club. By 18, Sandy proved her father right when she made waves as one of the only female members of the Los Angeles chapter. Imagine that. In the middle of these buff biker dudes, there's blonde-haired, beautiful Sandy, just as tough, if not tougher. On that note, let's talk about her nickname, the Serpent. You might have heard of the Mongols, a rival outlaw gang that's been feuding with the Hells Angels for as long as anyone can remember. The Mongols were gaining territories around Los Angeles and threatening the Hells Angels' dominance in the region. They had to be stopped. You'd think that as a member of the notorious outlaw group, Sandy would have been just the same as any of the men in her circle and immediately resorted to violence. The truth is, she never did because she never had to. All Sandy had to do was talk her way through a situation. Her venom was her ability to manipulate any situation, causing internal strife, and that's exactly what she did with the Mongols. She never raised her fists. Instead, she just infiltrated the rivaling group from within, making them fight among one another and slowly break away. She conquered by numbers because once bikers had left the Mongols, they sought membership in the Hells Angels. And who did they trust to lead them through this new chapter? None other than the Serpent herself. This isn't to say that Sandy never resorted to using her fists. She did sparingly, only when she had to, though. Sandy's name had come up in several police investigations, including some that tied her to forced disappearances and even slayings of rival group members. At the end of the day, though, none of those charges could ever stick, and Sandy rode off into the sunset without a care in the world. Number 19. Habiba Khajan. The Hells Angels have gained prominence in North America, and while they might have originated in the United States, there's arguably a more dangerous faction living in Canada. This takes us to the story of Habiba Khajan, a 43-year-old resident of London, Ontario, whose face was plastered all over the front page in 2019 when she was found involved with the Hells Angels. In December 2019, as part of Operation Hobart, the Ontario Provincial Police arrested Khajan along with 27 others, including Robert Barletta, a founding member of the London Hells Angels chapter. The investigation uncovered an extensive illegal gambling network that reportedly generated approximately $131 million over 5 years. Khajan faced multiple charges, notably unauthorized possession of a firearm and involvement in gambling operations. Authorities alleged that her residence at 203 Commissioners Road was utilized to launder proceeds from illegal gambling activities, store illegal firearms, and facilitate the gambling operation. But the police have no real way of tying her to any of those crimes anymore. Why? Just a few weeks into her arrest, and long before the police had obtained a warrant to search her $1 million property, a fire broke out, destroying the house and everything with it, all the evidence. Was this fire deliberately set up by Khajan and the Hells Angels to conceal further evidence of their illegal gambling activities? With the house in ashes, prosecutors have no way to prove it. In November 2020, Kajan initiated a lawsuit against her insurance company, seeking $3.3 million after they refused to cover the damages from the fire. The insurer contended that Kajan violated her policy by not disclosing her alleged connections to the Hells Angels and misrepresenting herself as the sole owner of the property. The legal proceedings surrounding Kajan and the other individuals arrested during Operation Hobart have been complex. While the criminal charges were significant, the outcomes varied, with some charges being withdrawn or resulting in lesser convictions. Nonetheless, the operation highlighted the extensive reach of illegal gambling networks in Ontario and their alleged ties to organized crime groups like the Hells Angels. Kajan's case underscores the challenges law enforcement faces in dismantling sophisticated criminal enterprises and the intricate legal battles that often ensue in the aftermath of such operations. Number 18. Rosie Road Rage Ramirez. How do you join a supposed brotherhood as a woman? It might sound like the most difficult thing in the world, but nothing was too difficult for Rosie Ramirez, especially since she wanted to be a part of the Hells Angels for as long as she could remember. Growing up in an impoverished neighborhood in Arizona, there wasn't much for the Ramirez family to do. Rosie came from a big family, and unfortunately, one that didn't have the means to sustain such a large household. This basically meant that from as long as she could remember, Rosie had to fend for herself. She had to make her own way in life. There weren't going to be any shortcuts, especially not when it came to joining the notorious outlaw gang. Rosie became affiliated with a local motorcycle gang in her teens, working her way to the very top. She didn't rely on anything besides her brute force, and Rosie had a lot of it. You especially wouldn't want to catch Rosie on the road. While the outlaw biker was a skilled motorist, she also had a short fuse. This basically meant that if you cut her off on the highway, she was about to chase you down, run you off the road, and worse. Again, you don't earn the moniker Road Rage for being the most patient person on the planet. The Hells Angels weren't too thrilled with the idea of the local motorcycle gang being absorbed into the Arizona chapter, especially since Rosie was a part of the package. Did they let her join to humor her? Did they think she would be shoved out of the clubhouse in due time because she was a woman after all? Maybe, but they severely underestimated her tenacity. Not only did she prove that she was as tough as nails, but she also showed that she was a core member of the group when she defeated members of a rival gang. Rosie and her Hells Angels associates were outnumbered when they came face to face with rival gang members. This could have ended badly for them, but it didn't. Rosie was credited by the Hells Angels for standing her ground and fighting off the rivals, possibly slaying one or two in the process. This pretty much cemented her position in the gang. No one would ever question Rosie Ramirez's place again. Number 17. Elena Vader. Elena Vader is enjoying her days as a free woman. Why wouldn't she? Despite her close association with the Hells Angels, her defense team was able to prove that she was no more than just a bystander. After all, the Hells Angels don't allow women into the Brotherhood, do they? That's the sort of defense that's allowed female associates of the Hells Angels to get away with their crimes without any recourse. That's also the sort of defense that finds women in greater numbers joining the Hells Angels too. While the club was founded as a male-only community, women have always been a part of the inner circle. To the outside world, these women appeared to be mixed up in something they couldn't comprehend. But to women like Elena, this felt right at home. Also known as Elena Diana Jones, Elena Vader became a figure of interest in the Australian outlaw motorcycle scene due to her relationship with former Hells Angels member Ben Notorious Geppert. Her boyfriend was no stranger to criminal activity and controversy, known for his involvement in serious offenses, making his relationship with Elena noteworthy. It was through this connection that she found herself embroiled in the criminal underworld that the Hells Angels inhabited, where loyalty, secrecy, and danger were commonplace. While Vader's direct criminal involvement is unclear, her relationship with Geppert likely afforded her a certain level of access to the inner workings of the Hells Angels. Like many women involved with members of outlaw motorcycle clubs, she may have been more deeply involved than what was publicly known. Women in these situations often play key roles behind the scenes, whether it's providing support, managing logistics, or keeping things running smoothly while their partners are involved in illicit activities. In many cases, women like Veda are not simply passive observers, but active participants who help navigate the dangerous and complex world of organized crime. Number 16. Angie Anarchy Anderson. The Hells Angels have always been viewed with suspicion whenever the bikes make their way into town. There's just something about the members, with their heavy-duty bikes, leather jackets, and visible tattoos, that rubs people the wrong way. To add to that, some members of the Hells Angels are actively involved in illegal activities, and several clubhouses have been a part of sting operations because of the horde of crime that goes on there. Yes, there are more than a few negative connotations attached to the Hells Angels, that's true. But the outlaw gang is so much more than what it appears. And to someone like Angie Anarchy Anderson, it was a family. This is the story of someone who came to the Hells Angels when she quite literally had nothing else to her name. Angie was born and raised in Detroit, and sometime in her early teenage years, she left home owing to an abusive living situation. There wasn't much she could do and no one she could really turn to, besides, of course, people in the same situation as her. Like Angie, there were other future members of the Hells Angels who came from nothing and were looking for a family. Eventually, this group of outcasts met with the outlaws, and that's where Angie found her place. She owed her life to the Hells Angels, and she was willing to take a few for them too. This meant pledging her unwavering support to the outlaw gang and being the first to steady herself whenever there was a threat. Yes, Angie was a rarity, a woman in the middle of a presumed brotherhood, but she was welcomed. Angie would eventually go on to earn the name Anarchy because of her willingness to go to any lengths to defend those she loved, and she loved her brotherhood. Number 15. Lisa Melina S. No one quite does it like the German chapter of the Hells Angels, and we mean no one. Particularly, the Hamburg chapter is known for being extremely ruthless, making sure that anyone who crosses their path is exterminated. You've heard stories of forced disappearances, mysterious slayings, and law enforcement officials at their wits' end trying to put together a case. Hamburg manages to slip through the cracks. But what if the Hells Angels were the ones who needed help from law enforcement? That's right, in 2018, following the attempted slaying of the leader of the Hamburg chapter, Dariush, the Hells Angels turned to law enforcement. Little did they know that the assailant was someone from among them, a young woman, no less. This is the story of Lisa Melina S., a 29-year-old affiliate of the Hells Angels, and someone who was very close to Dariush. You could always find Lisa at the Hamburg clubhouse around other members of the Hells Angels. She was as tough as nails, as solid as they came, but the German members refused to acknowledge her as an actual member. This didn't mean that Lisa didn't have the props for it, but that the members were apprehensive of opening their doors to a woman. Nevertheless, Lisa rose through the ranks as sneakily as she could, and before long, she'd made it to the top with Dariush by her side. But she wanted more. She wanted to find a way to become the leader of the Hells Angels. You see, the Hamburg chapter of the outlaw gang works as enforcers for other gangs and organizations. They use brute force to get their way. Maybe that's why they never suspected Lisa to be the true mastermind behind their president's murder. Anyway, in December 2018, while Dariush was waiting at a red light in his Bentley on the Millantorplatz, a Mercedes pulled up beside him and he was shot multiple times, leaving him paralyzed and wheelchair-bound. Lisa was identified as the owner of the Mercedes, which the shots were fired. Now, this is where the story gets murky, because while Lisa was known to hang around the Hamburg clubhouse, she was actually living a double life. She also had ties to the rivaling Mongols gang. The orchestrator of this attack was identified as Arash, Lisa Melina's then boyfriend and pimp, who held a leadership position within the rival Mongols motorcycle club. Investigations revealed that Arash coordinated the assassination from prison, instructing Lisa Melina to facilitate the hit. Following the attack, she fled but was apprehended shortly after. In court, she admitted to her role, expressing that she saw the act as an opportunity to demonstrate her loyalty to Arash. Lisa was handed a 12-year sentence for the attempted slaying, but many believe that she wouldn't have gone through such lengths for Arash, someone who was already in prison. In fact, for his role in the crime, Arash was handed a life sentence. Why would Lisa waste her life on someone who had no way of getting back to her in the real world? Many believed that after viewing the sort of life that Arish had been living, she wanted in on it. She couldn't procure her place in the Mongols, which was when she turned to the Hells Angels. Her affiliation with Darasuch was purely to get him to lower his guard. Did Lisa plan on becoming a member of the Hells Angels? Did she plan on staying with the Mongols? Or was this the stepping stone into Lisa creating something much bigger than the two groups? Number 14. Molly Mad Dog McDougal. You're either a part of the Hells Angels or you're not. For many women, the unfortunate reality is that they are never truly accepted into the outlaw gang. There are a few negative connotations attached to having female members in a bike gang, and the Hells Angels didn't want to have to be among the first outlaw gangs to change what had become tradition. But there was just something about Molly McDougal that compelled them to bend the rules. After all, she was the mad dog. The Hells Angels don't rely on numbers for their strength. They rely on their brute force. It's the death stare that they give people crossing their path that makes them walk the other way. It's the way they stand tall and proud with their club patches in full view. To become a member, Molly had to embody whatever it took to be an outlaw, and she did it flawlessly. Her rebellious attitude had gotten her in trouble before. She was seen as an outlaw from a very young age, refusing to obey anyone's orders. The only person she ever truly listened to was herself. But the mad dog had to tone it down by a considerable lot when she joined the Hells Angels. As a woman, she was placed under probation for a time being. Molly had to work twice as hard as any man in the Hells Angels. She had to make her presence known and make sure that everyone around her respected her. Molly earned a wild reputation as part of the Hells Angels. She was known for her short fuse and fearless attitude, which kept her on law enforcement's radar. Still, she always seemed one step ahead. Molly wasn't just tough, she was legendary. People admired her grit and were terrified of it too. Her loyalty to the Hells Angels never wavered, and her boldness became the stuff of biker folklore. Even now, her name carries weight. Molly's story is a reminder of how far grit and nerve can take you. Number 13. Marie Antoinette Bugaj. One day, you're living a normal life, and the next, your face is plastered all over the headlines. That's just the sort of unexpected twist you could expect when you associate yourselves with the Hells Angels. In 2017, a 40-year-old otherwise normal woman found herself at the center of legal troubles when she was arrested at her home in New Brunswick. This is the story of Marie Antoinette Bugaj, a small-town woman who was a known associate and accomplice of the Hells Angels Nomad, New Brunswick chapter. Bugaj was closely linked to Robin Moulton, a full-patch member of the Hells Angels MC Nomads NB. Their relationship extended beyond personal ties. Bugaj was associated with Moulton's business that sold clothing emblazoned with Hells Angels insignia. This connection underscored her deep integration into the club's culture and activities. On August 22, 2017, Moulton was arrested, prompting a subsequent investigation that led to Bugaj's arrest on August 29, 2017. During the execution of a search warrant at her residence on Aberdeen Street in Fredericton, authorities uncovered drugs, firearms, and counterfeit cash. It was obvious that Bugaj's role in the Nomad chapter was as someone the police would least expect to be involved in criminal activities. Perhaps that made Bugaj one of the more dangerous members of the Nomads chapter. To the ordinary New Brunswick citizen, Bugaj was a regular woman with a regular life, and everything about her seemed ordinary for the most part. But in reality, she had ties to one of the world's most notorious outlaw groups. The police acknowledged that they'd been trying to tie Moulton to a horde of crimes for years, but always fell short when it came to gathering evidence. Ultimately, during an undercover operation, they realized that the only reason why Moulton was able to get away with it for so long was because he had Bugaj to shield him from justice. Bugaj wouldn't be the only woman in the history of the Hells Angels who lived a double life. In fact, she would be one of several women associated with the outlaw gang whose main role was deception. Ultimately, in 2017, however, Bugaj was taken away from her residence in handcuffs, much to the surprise of the local community. Bugaj was charged with possession of cocaine for the purpose of trafficking and possession of a prohibited weapon. She was remanded in custody, with her court appearance scheduled for September 1st, 2017. In October 2018, Bugaj pleaded guilty to charges including possession of a loaded firearm without a license, possession of cocaine, and possession of proceeds obtained by crime. She was sentenced to 30 months in jail, accompanied by a 10-year firearms prohibition. Additionally, $77,000 seized during her arrest was ordered to be forfeited as proceeds of crime. Bugaj's involvement with the Hells Angels MC Nomads NB highlights the intricate dynamics of relationships within outlaw motorcycle gangs. Her case serves as a cautionary tale. Number 12. Lena Lethal Lawson. In the world of the Hells Angels, where your moniker is everything, Lena earned the title Lethal. The young member came from the tough, frozen terrain of Alaska. She claimed that her home and rough upbringing shaped her into someone strong, quiet, and sharp. Lena wasn't known for being a talker, much less a sweet talker. She didn't believe in talking her way to the top, nor did she believe she had to manipulate her way ahead. She acted, and when she did, people paid attention. Every move she made had a purpose, and if you were on the wrong side of it, you didn't get a second chance. From a young age, Lena had a gift with engines. She could tear a motorcycle apart and put it back together better than before. That made her a huge asset to the Hells Angels. But it wasn't just her skills in the garage that got her noticed. It was how she handled threats. Lena wasn't reckless or violent just for the sake of it. But if someone came for her or her crew, she knew exactly how to shut it down fast. Cops were always watching her, but she had a way of staying just outside their reach. She was smart and knew how to navigate the line between legal and illegal without getting caught. One of her most well-known moments was when she flipped an ambush by a rival gang. Everyone expected her to be outnumbered, but instead she outsmarted them, broke their ranks, and walked away as the winner. Lena Lethal Lawson wasn't just another biker. She represented everything the Hells Angels stood for: loyalty, strength, and independence. She didn't follow the rules of the outside world, she made her own, and she lived by them. Her story isn't just about toughness, it's about being clever, capable, and fearless in a world where that's what it takes to survive. Number 11. Laufey Owen. Laufey Gale Owen is notably recognized for her close association with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club through her marriage to Kenneth J. Owen, a prominent member of the club. Her involvement with the club has led to multiple legal entanglements over the years. Laufey was a dangerous woman in her own right. Her life shows how deep some associates were embedded in the outlaw biker world, not just by marriage, but by action. She wasn't afraid of the law, and more often than not, she outsmarted it. Her story is a reminder that within groups like the Hells Angels, it's not just the men who make waves. Sometimes, the most quietly dangerous figures are the ones standing right beside them. Laufey wasn't just connected to the Hells Angels. She was deeply involved in the life that came with it. As Kenneth's wife, aka one of the key players in the club's drug operations, Laufey knew exactly what she was getting into. Kenneth had built a reputation inside the Hells Angels for running large-scale illegal substance distribution networks. When federal agents raided their joint Oakland home in 1987, they found close to $1 million in cash, a money-counting machine spitting out $100 bills, and even a drug-making recipe labeled RICO Legal Defense Fund. Call that a not-so-subtle nod to the legal heat they knew was coming. You have to remember something here. Laufey wasn't just an innocent bystander in Kenneth's world, she held her own. Her rap sheet started way back in 1969 and only grew from there. In 1981, she and another woman were caught helping hide a fugitive Aryan Brotherhood member who had broken out of prison. When law enforcement found them, there were machine guns and ammo stashed inside the cabin. That wasn't her last run-in. In 1995, cops raided a sprawling property she was tied to and found stolen vehicles, high-powered firearms, and materials suggesting a meth lab in the works. She faced charges for everything from stolen goods to planning drug manufacturing. The Hells Angels, especially in the Bay Area, weren't just rough around the edges, they were ruthless and hardened criminals. Their reputation for violence and drug trade was no secret, and Kenneth was one of their major players. Laufey wasn't just along for the ride, she was steering it at times. She managed to keep a low profile in public while helping maintain the behind-the-scenes chaos that powered the club's criminal network. Number 10. Tara Tornado Thompson. Tara Tornado Thompson is one of the most respected and feared women in the Hells Angels. Known for her tough, no-nonsense attitude, she quickly made a name for herself in a world dominated by men. In a club where women often face challenges to prove their worth, Tara didn't just fit in, she stood out. Her nickname, Tornado, perfectly matches her fiery personality and the chaos she could create when needed. As part of the Hells Angels, she was involved in various activities, showing loyalty to the club and its dangerous lifestyle. Tara's reputation grew as someone not afraid to get her hands dirty, whether it meant standing her ground in tough situations or taking on tasks that others might shy away from. Over the years, Tara earned the respect of the club's members, not just for her boldness, but for her unwavering commitment to the Hells Angels. Her ability to navigate the male-dominated world of the club shows the growing influence of women in the outlaw biker community, where they're slowly but surely claiming more powerful roles. Tara Tornado Thompson proved that women could be just as formidable and even more dangerous than their male counterparts. Number 9. Kimberly Lee, Kimbra Townsend. Kimberly Lee Kimbra Townsend is often tied to the darker side of the outlaw biker world. She became well known in the early 1980s when she was arrested for helping Michael Howard Walton, a fugitive from the Aryan Brotherhood who had escaped from prison. This arrest highlighted her involvement in a world that thrives on secrecy, loyalty, and crime, which are key parts of outlaw biker culture. While there's no solid proof of her direct link to the Hells Angels, her connections to outlaw clubs, including the Hells Angels. In the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, women like Kimbra often play a much bigger role than most realize. While these clubs are known for their male-dominated leadership, women are key players in their operations. They often act as accomplices, confidants, and even masterminds in illegal activities like drug trafficking, money laundering, and arms dealing. Kimbra was skilled at using her position to manipulate the men around her, using charm and influence to her advantage. Though she may have seemed like a bystander, Kimbra's involvement was much deeper. She likely had access to sensitive information and played a part in the club's operations. By staying out of the spotlight, she was able to manipulate situations and maintain a powerful position within the criminal network. In a world where women are often underestimated, Kimbra was a master of using her intelligence and connections to her advantage, making her indispensable to the outlaw biker world. Number 8. Fiona Firebrand Fitzpatrick. In a world where rules were meant to be broken, Fiona Firebrand Fitzpatrick stood out as someone who didn't just live in the chaos, she thrived in it. Born and raised in Chicago, Fiona wasn't the kind of person to go with the flow. Even as a kid, she pushed back against anyone who tried to tell her how things should be. That rebellious streak only grew stronger as she got older, eventually leading her into the world of the Hells Angels. Fiona wasn't just another member. She became known for her fiery speeches and her fierce take-no-prisoners attitude. She challenged societal norms loudly and publicly, earning her the nickname Firebrand. Her words lit a fire in people, especially in other angels, making her a powerful voice within the group. But she wasn't just talk. Fiona was also a doer. When things got rough, she was right there on the front lines, going head-to-head with rival gangs and leading from the front. Her leadership wasn't traditional, but it worked. Fiona inspired people to fight harder, not just with fists, but with purpose. One of her biggest moments came during a massive crackdown on motorcycle gangs across the city. While most groups tried to keep a low profile, Fiona did the opposite. She organized loud, unapologetic protests that drew attention and a lot of heat from law enforcement. It was her way of showing the world that the Hells Angels wouldn't back down without a fight. Of course, her rebellious nature meant she clashed with the police more than a few times. Fiona had a knack for slipping away just when it seemed like they had her cornered. Her cleverness and guts kept her out of jail more times than anyone could count. Fiona Firebrand Fitzpatrick wasn't about playing it safe or following the rules. She stood for rebellion, independence, and the belief that no one could tell her or her crew how to live. She made a name for herself not just through loud words or bold stunts, but by staying true to her fight, no matter the cost. Her legacy is one of passion, defiance, and a fire that never really went out. Number 7. Genevieve Dubois. The Hells Angels, founded in 1948 in California, have grown into one of the most notorious outlaw motorcycle clubs globally, with a significant presence in Canada. Their involvement in organized crime, particularly drug trafficking, has been well documented. The fact of the matter is that right now the whole world knows about the outlaw gang's criminal activities. If you see someone with the Hells Angels emblem on their leather jacket walking toward you, your best bet is to turn around and run the other way. However, the Hells Angels come with a certain sense of unity and internal prestige. For Genevieve Dubois, being an associate meant being a part of something much bigger than herself. However, it was this sort of wishful thinking that led to her being found deceased in 1999. What had happened? Who was Genevieve, and why were the Hells Angels so threatened by her? Genevieve Dubois was allegedly involved in a drug trafficking network linked to the Hells Angels motorcycle club. Authorities suspected that the bikers unalived her due to fears she might cooperate with law enforcement. Dubois' death in 1999 is believed to be connected to the Hells Angels' efforts to eliminate potential informants within their ranks. This period was marked by the Quebec Biker War, a violent conflict between rival motorcycle clubs, including the Hells Angels, over control of drug trafficking territories. The war resulted in numerous deaths and highlighted the brutal tactics employed by these organizations to maintain dominance. The Hells Angels have long maintained a hyper-masculine image, but their reliance on women within their network reveals a complex and contradictory dynamic. Women are frequently brought into their world as girlfriends, wives, or trusted associates. They're often employed for tasks that require a lower profile, like transporting drugs, handling cash, or offering safe houses to evade law enforcement. Don't get it twisted. They're not dragged into this world. They're very active members of it. At least that was the case for Genevieve. Authorities believed that prior to her 1999 slaying, she was an active member who knew about the inner workings of the Hells Angels. Unfortunately for her, the Hells Angels soon realized that she knew too much. Over time, many women like Genevieve become far more than just background players. As they grow closer to high-ranking members, they're entrusted with secrets, introduced to the internal workings of the club, and sometimes become gatekeepers of critical operations. And in some cases, like that of Genevieve, that trust becomes a liability. Remember, she was once a close associate within a Hells Angels-linked drug trafficking ring. Authorities suspect her unaliving was orchestrated by the bikers themselves, fearful she might turn informant. Her death reflects a deeper paranoia within the club, a fear that the very women they relied on could use the trust they'd earned to undermine them. Whether through manipulation, survival instinct, or genuine disillusionment, some women reached a point where they held more power than the men expected, and that made them dangerous. For a group so fixated on control and loyalty, the idea that a woman might be their undoing from within is threatening. In some cases, it's a motive for elimination. Number 6. Daisy Deathwish Donovan. In the outlaw motorcycle world, courage isn't optional, it's survival. For Daisy Deathwish Donovan, it was more than survival. It was who she was. Born in the rugged wilds of Colorado, Daisy was used to pushing limits. She didn't just flirt with danger, she chased it, welcomed it, and made it part of her identity. It was that unshakable thirst for adrenaline that eventually led her to the Hells Angels, a group known not just for their love of freedom, but for their brutal reputation and violent dominance, especially in their Colorado chapter. Daisy's path into the club wasn't easy. The Angels didn't hand out respect, especially not to women. But Daisy didn't wait around for permission. She made herself impossible to ignore. Her moment came when a rival gang stole a prized motorcycle from the Angels. While others hesitated, Daisy made her move. She crossed into enemy turf, stole the bike back, and rode off without a scratch. That stunt earned her the nickname Deathwish and something even harder to get: acceptance. From there, she carved out a place in a world that wasn't built to welcome her. While the Colorado chapter of the Angels was feared for its ruthlessness and heavy-handed control of its territory, Daisy fit right in. Her nerves of steel, her loyalty, and her ability to keep cool under fire made her more than just a member. She became essential. Time after time, she volunteered for jobs no one else wanted. High-risk runs, tense standoffs, close brushes with law enforcement. Daisy took them all head-on. But being fearless had its price. Law enforcement watched her closely, and she had more than a few close calls. Yet somehow, she always got away. Her quick thinking and refusal to fold under pressure became her trademark. Daisy Deathwish Donovan wasn't just another biker. She forced her way into one of the most brutal outlaw circles and earned her place through sheer grit. Her story isn't just about rebellion, it's about a woman who had to work twice as hard to be taken seriously and who, in doing so, became one of the most unforgettable figures in the history of the Hells Angels. Number 5. Kathleen Ray. In the mid-1970s, Kathleen Ray found herself embroiled in legal troubles and controversy when it came to light that she was a silent member of the Hells Angels Omaha chapter. You might recognize the Omaha chapter as being one of the more ruthless of the Hells Angels chapters, and you'd be surprised that Kathleen was ever inducted into the gang. After all, the Hells Angels aren't necessarily the most forthcoming when it comes to inclusivity. Take the 1970s slaying of Mary Kay Harmer as an example. On that note, did you know that if it weren't for Kathleen, Mary would still be alive today? Not just her, but who knows how many more people have met their demise at Kathleen's hands, although indirectly. Here's where Kathleen's larger role in the Omaha chapter comes up. You see, the Hells Angels have always maintained a hyper-masculine image, and giving Kathleen full membership would have undermined that image. So Thomas Edward Red Nesbitt came up with an alternative instead. She would serve as the face of the chapter. This meant that Kathleen was used as bait by Nesbitt and other members whenever they wanted their rivals to lower their guard. To go ahead with what happened to Mary Kay, she was invited to Nesbitt's residence by Kathleen. Nesbitt was a known punk, to put it lightly, and 19-year-old Mary Kay knew better than to hang around him. If it wasn't for the sense of false security that Kathleen had created, maybe Mary would still be here today. The details of the case are murky, but here's what we know. Sometime in the 70s, Mary Kay was invited by Kathleen and another associate to Nesbitt's house. She was taken there under the guise of a party. Once there, the young Mary Kay was fueled with alcohol and illegal substances, at which point Kathleen and the other woman made their exit. We don't know exactly what happened to Mary Kay or what was said that irked Nesbitt enough to end her life. We don't know what his vendetta was, but coroners believed, based on evidence of trauma, that she was likely tortured. This would indicate that Nesbitt tried to break Mary Kay in some ways, offering her a position in the Hells Angels, possibly like the one Kathleen held, but she kept resisting. While Nesbitt was apprehended and taken into custody, ultimately sentenced, Kathleen never was. This would serve as a chilling reminder that the real players in the disappearances and deaths tied to the Hells Angels are people you least suspect, and people who can easily slip away through the cracks in the system. Number 4. Brenda Breakneck Brooks. Brenda Brooks was one of the few women who carved out a place for herself within the Hells Angels. That is, a male-dominated organization known for its violent criminal activities. Founded in 1948, the outlaw gang has a reputation and is known for its strict code of brotherhood and loyalty. The key word here is brotherhood. Women usually played secondary roles in the club. However, Brenda defied the odds, rising through the ranks and making her own mark in the world of outlaw biker men. Women in the Hells Angels have often been seen as old ladies, never thought of as more than just partners of male members or supporters who help with the club's needs. They weren't usually at the forefront. Despite this, Brenda earned the nickname Breakneck, symbolizing her fearless nature and her willingness to take risks that others wouldn't or couldn't. Her moniker proved that she was known for pushing boundaries and embracing challenges, much like the rest of the club's members who are notorious for their reckless bravery and illegal activities. Brenda's ability to rise in such a tough environment speaks volumes about her strength and determination. She wasn't just a passive member, she showed the grit and a high degree of intelligence that was necessary to gain respect in a group that valued loyalty and toughness above all. Over time, she became an influential figure within the Hells Angels, proving that women could not only survive, but thrive in such a harsh world. Her story stands as a reminder that while the Hells Angels were traditionally harsh toward women, there were always those like Brenda who defied expectations, pushed past gender roles, and ultimately made their own way in an organization built on brotherhood and power. Number 3. Jacqueline Kallenbach. Sonny, Ralph, and Christy, 3 names that you'll hear over and over again when you talk about the Hells Angels. They were, after all, the founding members of the notorious outlaw biker gang. While all 3 of them were embroiled in legal controversies of their own, they always maintained that the Hells Angels stood for something greater. Unfortunately, they believed that it was no place for a woman. While times might have changed now and women are seen as somewhat equals in the outlaw biking community, it was far from being the case in Jacqueline's time. She, like many other former associates of the Hells Angels, had to work her way from the inside, through close association with a male member. What separates Jackie from the horde of other women who had the same MO, however, is that she was addicted to the power. You'd always find her next to one criminal boss or the other, and that's how she found her footing in the Hells Angels too. Born in 1957, she first married Christy Kinahan, an Irish crime boss known as Dapper Don. The couple tied the knot in 2001 and co-managed various businesses, including beauty salons, car dealerships, and construction firms, operating primarily from their residence in Surrey, UK. Their union lasted until 2007. Following her divorce from Kinahan, Jacqueline's personal life took another significant turn. She became involved with Louis Hageman, a Dutch Hells Angels member convicted of multiple murders. Hageman's criminal history includes the 1984 murders of Karina Bolhar and her 2 children, as well as the 1985 murder of Joanne Wilson, a case that remained unresolved due to insufficient evidence. To say that Jackie had gotten addicted to the power would be an understatement. She'd always been an associate of the Hells Angels, and after her divorce, she was shunned from the group. This would have a lot to do with the biker gang's notorious no-female reputation and nothing to do with Jackie herself. However, she needed another way in, and Hageman was that way in. They'd actually met while he was in prison. She continued to advocate for his release from the outside, eventually forming a close relationship with him. All of this just to rejoin the Hells Angels. Jacqueline's unwavering support for Hageman highlighted her deep commitment. Yet it also drew criticism due to his notorious past. Her belief in his wrongful conviction persisted throughout their marriage, reflecting a complex relationship with the criminal justice system and her personal associations. Jacqueline Kallenbach passed away in May 2022 in the Netherlands at the age of 64, following a brief illness. Her life, marked by associations with high-profile criminals, underscores the intricate and often controversial relationships within the world of organized crime. Number 2. Nina Nightmare Nicholson. Nina Nightmare Nicholson was no stranger to the rough world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, and she quickly made a name for herself as someone not to be messed with. With a cold, calculating attitude, Nina wasn't just another woman in the Hells Angels. She was a force to be reckoned with. Growing up in a tough neighborhood, Nina was no stranger to hardship, and that resilience made her the perfect fit for the club's gritty lifestyle. Her nickname, Nightmare, came from her ability to make people fear her. Whether it was rivals, law enforcement, or even members of her own club, Nina knew how to manipulate situations to her advantage. She had a sharp mind and a calm demeanor under pressure, making her a master of navigating the complicated world of crime, loyalty, and betrayal that defined the Hells Angels. Rising through the ranks of the Hells Angels wasn't easy, especially in a male-dominated environment. But Nina wasn't one to back down. With a mix of wit, charm, and a ruthless streak, she earned her place and began handling the club's most dangerous and delicate operations. Over time, her influence grew, and she became known as someone who could get things done when the stakes were high. Nina's story is a testament to how far determination and strategy can take someone, even in a world that often underestimates them. Number 1. Taryn R. Colwell. At only 28 years of age, Taryn Colwell found herself in deep, deep trouble. In April 2021, she was found to be the main suspect in the mysterious death of 22-year-old Roger Ridgway. The backstory here is that the morning before Roger was found deceased, His mother had actually had an altercation at Gord's pub with several members of the Hells Angels. The incident was found to be Ridgway's mother's fault. Onlookers described her as being severely intoxicated, harassing the bikers for a ride. This was on April 17th, and Ridgway was immediately called to the scene to control the situation. However, once he got there, he had a confrontation of his own with the bikers. Ridgway arrived at the bar and was struck with a blunt object by Mandel L. Roy, a 26-year-old from Minneapolis. Where does Terran come up? Fueled by adrenaline, she joined the altercation, allegedly stabbing Ridgway, resulting in his death. The police claimed that Ridgway was stabbed multiple times, asserting how knife-happy Terran really was. What made the death mysterious, however, was that no one at the pub was willing to testify on Ridgway's behalf. They knew that if they made a peep to the detectives, they'd be next. This actually helped Terran out greatly, who was able to flee to Minneapolis. Ultimately, however, she was arrested on May 7th after an exhaustive hunt. She led officers on a high-speed chase before abandoning her vehicle and fleeing on foot. Minneapolis police apprehended her, and she was held in the Hennepin County Jail, awaiting extradition to Wisconsin. Initially charged with felony murder, the Hells Angels associate later pleaded no contest to substantial battery with intent to cause bodily harm and aiding a felon. She was convicted on these charges, and sentencing was scheduled for September 30th, 2022. The tragic event underscores the potential dangers associated with confrontations involving motorcycle club members and the profound consequences such altercations can have on all involved.